Yes, welcome back everybody to Altcoin Daily. My name's Austin. The Ethereum merge was an overwhelming success, meaning the network successfully transitioned from proof of work to proof of stake, getting rid of the miners, and instead of having the miners to mint new coins into existence, validate transactions, putting that in the hands of the stakers, meaning the people that hold the coins are in charge of the network. The benefit to you and me is not only did this reduce Ethereum's energy consumption by over 99%, but also it reduced Ethereum's daily issuance, the amount of ETH being minted into existence, it reduced that drastically. And while ETH isn't deflationary yet, if/when network activity picks up over the long term, this most likely will make Ethereum deflationary long term if/when the users are there. So, like I said, an overwhelming success. But at what cost? Because as per the latest data, turns out over 40% of Ethereum nodes are controlled by just two addresses. And in today's video, that's exactly what I want to share with you. We'll look at a few different studies, a few different on-chain metrics, what does the data say, as well as compare this to Bitcoin and Bitcoin's miners, which network, BTC or ETH, is more decentralized. We'll talk about it, as well as give you all the information so you can make the best decision for you. So like always, check the timestamps down below, hit the like button, and let's jump in, starting with, as I stated, 40% plus of Ethereum proof of stake nodes are controlled by just two addresses, says Sentiment Data. Is this accurate? Let's unpack this. Hours after the merge, the first address has validated about 188 blocks, or around 30% of the nodes, and the second address has validated 16%, or 105 blocks. This data became a controversial topic as users debated about the impact of the merge on centralization for the largest dApp platform in the world. What was the exact tweet? And this is from Sentiment, highly respected data aggregator, researcher on the blockchain. They say, according to our Ethereum post-merge inflation dashboard, 46% of the proof-of-stake nodes for storing data, processing transactions, and adding new blockchain blocks can be attributed to just two addresses. This heavy dominance by these addresses is something to watch. Now, who owns these two ETH addresses, and just how big a deal long-term is this? Well, in a direct quote from crypto analyst at Bitwise, he says, since the successful completion of the merge, the majority of blocks, somewhere around 40% or more, have been built by two addresses belonging to Lido and Coinbase. It isn't ideal to see more than 40% of blocks being settled by two providers, particularly one that is a centralized service provider, Coinbase. Now, we are getting a little bit of conflicting data. Some people say two, other people say a few. Big firms are dominating post-merge Ethereum validation. But either way, we can look at the addresses. These are the main players in charge, essentially, of the ETH network as they're validating the majority of the transactions. Now, how is something like this possible? How does Coinbase and Lido have that much control right now of the network? Well, Lido is an Ethereum staking service, right now, I guess, handling more than 27% of stake-based Ethereum validation, followed by Coinbase with more than 14%. People gave them that power. They deposited their money with Coinbase or with Lido and pooled their ETH together so they could afford to stake on the network. Because right now, and also for the past year, if you wanted to stake into the ETH2 contract on your own, you could. You would just need 32 Ethereum, which would be over $50,000 right now, which hasn't really been attainable for the average person. Yet Lido and Coinbase either already had or onboarded all these new retail investors, and they'll obviously take a cut, but people were allowed to stake through them. In fact, a recent Dune Analytics report affirmed that the largest two stakers of Ethereum are currently Lido, with 4.16 million ETH staked, around 30%, and Coinbase with 2 million ETH, 14.5%. The remaining stakers, classified as other, have 3.65 million ETH, 26% staked. Now, what is the fear? Besides centralization, being what we're fighting against, Practically speaking, what is the fear with something like this? Well, if participation in ETH's validation becomes too centralized, security experts note the possibility of a 51% attack becomes more than theoretical. Furthermore, dominant parties could be pressured to censor transactions on the blockchain, meaning if Coinbase gets pressure from the government saying, hey, we want you to censor certain people, certain transactions, theoretically, if they control the majority of the validation, they can more easily do that. Although Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong, to his credit, has said that such a scenario would prompt his company to get out of the staking business. I like that. I like that sentiment. But why even give him the choice? We don't want the potential of corruption. We want as decentralized a network as possible. And let me give you my take on this. How big of a deal is this if you hold Ethereum? And to do all this, let's compare Ethereum to Bitcoin. Because in my opinion, Bitcoin is the most decentralized, the most censorship resistant out of all the cryptos. And I'll prove it. Bitcoin is decentralized in 3 ways, whereas most cryptos are only decentralized in 1, maybe 2. Number 1, Bitcoin is decentralized in its nodes. They're distributed globally, controlled by the people all over the world. Number 2, Bitcoin is decentralized in its miners and its hash rate. Now, yes, this is the one that you can make the argument that it's the most centralized out of the 3 because Bitcoin is so powerful. You have to join a pool to mine it. And here is a pie chart of all the major pools for Bitcoin mining. And then number 3, Bitcoin is decentralized in its team/developers, meaning many of Bitcoin's developers are anonymous and the others are spread all over the world. Bitcoin's founder's anonymous. There's nobody you can drag in to Congress. As opposed to an altcoin, for example, let's just take Cardano. It's developed on by one organization, IOHK/ the Cardano Foundation, ran by Charles Hoskinson. Yes, there are developers under that all over the world, but I'm just comparing this to Bitcoin. It's less decentralized than Bitcoin, more decentralized than any corporate entity. Point is, everything's a spectrum. So those are the 3 different ways Bitcoin is decentralized. And one more point on the mining. Just because you're a miner plugged into a pool, you could always switch pools. Just because maybe you're part of a Chinese Bitcoin mining pool, or what used to be Chinese, doesn't mean you have to live in China. And I say all that now to relate this back to Ethereum. Because even though there's a top 7 entities controlling over 66% of the stake, which is not ideal, the important thing to realize is, number 1, Coinbase is taking custody of all these individual people's ETH, so that does get distributed eventually. It's not all their ETH. All that ETH does get redistributed to the people using them as a proxy. That's number 1. So the people fighting ETH just know there's a bigger picture to it. And also, the important thing to me is, can we trend over time more decentralized? But that's a decade-long experiment, and we're watching it play out in real time. Also, as the legacy system kind of comes in, we'll see Coinbase and Lido get much more competition, which is good for the end consumer. But that's the FUD, and some truth, some FUD. That's the data I wanted to clear up. Give me your thoughts down below. Does this concern you? Does this make you bullish? Give me your thoughts on ETH and the centralization. But as I get more data, I'll keep you updated. And that's the video. My name's Austin. Like always, have a great weekend. See you tomorrow.